Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Easy English Bible Study Podcast. My name is David Gray, and together we're going to read the Bible, and I will make some comments in easy to understand English. Okay, let's get started. Hi again. Great to see you. This is a bonus episode for this Lent and Easter season. So today's episode is from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 26, verses 36 to 68. The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 26, verse 36 to 68. Okay, we're in the Garden of Gethsemane. Here we go. Verse 36. Then Jesus went with his disciples to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to them, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took Peter and the two sons of Zebedee along with him, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. All right, the two sons of Zebedee are James and John. So we see here that Jesus has the same feelings that we do. And here he is very sorrowful and troubled. Troubled means his feelings are very difficult, very upsetting. Verse 38, then he said to them, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." He's overwhelmed. His feelings are so strong, they feel too much. Sorrow is sadness, deep sadness. He feels like he could die. Keep watch with me means please stay here and be with me and stay awake. Don't sleep. Stay awake. Verse 39. Going a little farther, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will." So he's praying with his face to the ground. He's saying, "Father, may this cup, may this situation that I'm in," he knows he's going to die. He knows he's going to die a terrible death on the cross, "be taken from me. Is it possible that I not die like this?" He's saying. But then he quickly says, "Yet not as I will, not what I want, but what you want, Father. But I will do what you want, Father." Verse 40, then he returned to his disciples, and he found them sleeping. "Couldn't you men keep watch with me for 1 hour?" Okay, so he found them sleeping. I'm sorry. "Couldn't you men keep watch with me for 1 hour?" he asked. He asked Peter. "Watch and pray, so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." How disappointing it must be for Jesus. He's alone. He brings Peter, James, and John to be with him, and they fall asleep. They don't seem to understand the seriousness of the situation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. We might spiritually want to do something, or emotionally we say we want to do something, but then our bodies are weak and we get too tired. Verse 42, he went away a second time and prayed, "My Father, if it is not possible for this cup to be taken away unless I drink it, may your will be done." That's very difficult. So if it's not possible for this situation to be taken away, if I must do it, if I must do this for things to be completed, for things to be accomplished, if this is the only way, well, may your way, may your will be done. So we see Jesus is accepting the situation as he's praying. Verse 43, when he came back, he again found them sleeping because their eyes were heavy. So he left them and went away once more and prayed the third time, saying the same thing. Then he returned to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and resting? Look, the hour has come, and the Son of Man is delivered into the hands of sinners." So Jesus is saying, now the time has come, and Jesus will be now taken away by these terrible people. Verse 46, rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer. Who's his betrayer? Judas. Judas is going to betray him, right? So rise, let us go. Jesus is now gone. He's changed, right? He went from, please take this cup away from me. Please take this situation away from me, right? If possible, to, well, if that's the way it has to be, I'll do it. And now we see Jesus is strong and he is accepting the situation. He says, rise, let's go. Wow, that's very strong. Here comes my betrayer. Verse 47, while he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. With him was a large crowd, armed with swords and clubs, sent from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had arranged a signal with them. The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him. Going at once to Jesus, Judas said, greetings, Rabbi, and kissed him. So, people would greet each other. And in many cultures today, maybe your culture, people greet with a kiss. That was the signal. That was the signal that Judas was giving to the crowd of people with him to arrest Jesus. This is the one to arrest. Verse 50, Jesus replied, do what you came for, friend. Then the men stepped forward, seized Jesus, and arrested him. They seized Jesus. They took him forcefully. They arrested him. It's interesting that Jesus says, Do what you came for. Again, Jesus is strongly accepting the situation. He's not resisting it. He's not fighting against it. Verse 51, with that, one of Jesus' companions reached for his sword, drew it out, and struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Now, in another gospel, it says that this is Peter. So if it's Peter, then he takes a sword and cuts off the ear of one of the servants that is trying to arrest him. Verse 52, put your sword back in its place, Jesus said to him, for all who draw the sword will die by the sword. This is a very famous expression in English. All who draw the sword will die by the sword, or those who live by the sword will die by the sword. If you live by violence, you'll die by violence. You will die violently. Verse 53. Do you think I cannot call on my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels? Jesus is saying, don't worry, if I wanted to fight against them, I could easily get many angels to come here. A legion, 5,000 or 6,000 angels to come and defend me forcefully. So Jesus has chosen not to fight against his arrest. Verse 54, but how then would the scriptures be fulfilled that say it must happen this way? The scriptures say, the Bible, Old Testament says that it must happen like this, and so it will. This prophecy will be fulfilled, will be completed. Verse 55, in that hour, Jesus said to the crowd, am I leading a rebellion that you have come out with swords and clubs to capture me? Every day I sat in the temple courts teaching, and you did not arrest me. So Jesus is saying, I've been living openly. I've been teaching openly. I'm not leading some rebellion, some secret rebellion. Why are you arresting me secretly like this? Now, of course, they're doing it because Jesus is popular, and remember, they were afraid of a riot. They were afraid that the people who liked Jesus would fight. So what have they done? They've come secretly to arrest Jesus at night. Verse 56, but this has all taken place that the writings of the prophets might be fulfilled. Then all the disciples deserted him and fled. So Jesus again says that this fulfills the scriptures, that Jesus is arrested like this, and all the disciples deserted him. Jesus said, Jesus predicted that when the shepherd is hit, the sheep will fall away, the sheep will run away, and they did. They ran away, just like Jesus predicted. Okay, let's continue. Before the Sanhedrin, we're going to go. Jesus is now going to appear before the religious leaders in a kind of it's like a court. 57. Those who had arrested Jesus took him to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the teachers of the law and the elders had assembled. Assembled means came together as a group. Verse 58, but Peter followed him at a distance, right up to the courtyard of the high priest. He entered and sat down with the guards to see the outcome. So Peter's being careful. He's not too close. He doesn't want to be caught. He doesn't want to be arrested, but he's trying to stay just a little bit farther away so that he can know what will happen, what will be the result, the outcome. Verse 59, the chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin were looking for false evidence against Jesus so that they could put him to death. But they did not find any, though many false witnesses came forward. So isn't this interesting that they're looking for false evidence? That's a strange expression. Evidence is something that proves that something is true. False evidence does not make sense. But they're looking for lies that they can use as evidence. Okay. Let's continue in the middle of verse 60. Finally, two came forward and declared, this fellow said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days. Then the high priest stood up and said to Jesus, are you not going to answer? What is this testimony that these men are bringing against you? Okay, so they're saying that Jesus said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days. Yes, Jesus did say that. Now, of course, the people thought that he meant the temple. Literally, that he would physically have the temple destroyed and then built again in 3 days. But what was Jesus really talking about? He was talking about himself, that he would die and 3 days later he would rise again from the dead. But people thought he meant literally, actually, about the temple. So let's read verse 62 one more time. Then the high priest stood up and said to Jesus, are you not going to answer? What is this testimony that these men are bringing against you? But Jesus remained silent. The high priest said to him, I charge you under oath by the living God. Tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God. So Jesus has to promise before God to tell the truth. That is an oath. An oath. And are you the Messiah or not? Jesus, verse 64, you have said so. Jesus replied. But I say to all of you, from now on, you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven. Okay, so here Jesus is saying something very strong. He's quoting Daniel of the Old Testament, Daniel chapter 7, verse 13. He did this sign of coming on the clouds of heaven is a sign of being the Messiah. It is a sign of coming in judgment and calling himself the Son of Man, sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One. The right hand, he's sharing power with God. He's on God's right side. this is an extremely strong statement that Jesus is giving to say boldly, to say strongly who he is. All of these words are very meaningful to the high priest. Verse 65. Then the high priest tore his clothes and said, "He has spoken blasphemy. Why do we need any more witnesses? Look, now you have heard the blasphemy. What do you think?" "He is worthy of death," they answered. "He deserves to die." What is blasphemy? It's when you say something terrible about God, or say something terrible about his name, or that you give yourself authority like God, like a God or God. You're so making yourself equal to God, or saying something terrible about God, insulting God, is blasphemy. And it's something so terrible to hear that what they did is they would tear their clothes, rip a part of their clothes. And so they said, "He deserves to die." Verse 67, then they spit in his face and struck him with their fists. So they punched him. Others slapped him and said, "Prophesy to us, Messiah. Who hit you?" So they are mocking Jesus terribly. They're meanly, sarcastically mocking him. Now it is beginning to be physical. This is the beginning of Jesus being hurt physically, and it continues to, so sadly, this is so sad, it continues to the crucifixion. Jesus is so bold, isn't he? That's the end of the reading for this bonus episode. Jesus is so bold, so strong. He refuses to be in Gethsemane. I'm sorry, let me say this again. In Gethsemane, he accepts the Father's will, and then in this trial, it's kind of a trial with the religious leaders. When they say, "Tell us if you are the Messiah," he says, "You have said so." He is being very strong and not accepting that they have authority over him, because he's the Son of God, right? And then of course he does give a bold answer finally that shows who he really is. So I find it so amazing that, one, we learn how Jesus feels, how he felt, the way we feel when we feel something terrible is coming. Jesus felt very sorrowful. He felt overwhelmed. But then he prayed these 3 times, and he couldn't get support from his friends, well, his disciples, but he did get support from the Father. And then he was strong, and he said who he really is, knowing that they are going to start to hit him and beat him, and he will be crucified. So what a wonderfully strong Savior we have. Okay, well, that's the end of today's reading. I want to talk to you about emailing. Okay, so you can email me at easyenglishbiblestudy@gmail.com. easyenglishbiblestudy@gmail.com. Please feel free to email me. Let me know how this podcast is for you. Any comments you want to give, any suggestions would be wonderful. Okay, thank you. Take care, and God bless you.